The college store at Pallet University is officially open. We have great merchandise such as t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeves, tank tops, stickers, and even throw pillows featuring designs like our college font logo and our secondary slogan, "In Oak We Trust," as well as the classic Pallet University insignia. Available in a variety of colors and sizes. Links in the description. Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. So, if you're wondering, Gavin, where did your hair go? You clearly did not watch my birthday special. A link to that will be right up in the corner, right there. Long story short, I shaved my head because I had planned on doing it over the summer anyway, but my job was offering free professional headshots to be done to use for like your career social media stuff. So I was like, do I want to get them taken when I have hair and then have them be useless in a month when I shave my head? No, of course not. So I was like, I'll just shave my head early. But yeah, I'm bald now. I think it looks good. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it, actually. People say that it makes me look like a professor, basically. Yeah, we're here today to start off Gen 2 of our Giving Every Pokemon a Scientific Name series. So without further ado, let's get into it by reviewing the rules. As always, the scientific names are given in either Greek or Latin, just because that's the custom. Neither of those languages I know how to speak. So if I happen to mispronounce something or, the syntax is a little wrong, give me a break. And rule number 2, the scientific name for any given Pokemon applies to every Pokemon within its family. So for instance, we're starting off with Meganium because we're kicking off Gen 2, so the name that I give Meganium will also apply to Chikorita and Bayleaf as well. With that, let's get started with Meganium. Meganium's scientific name is Saurophyta aurum, or aurum lizard plant. Aurum plants are a species of corpse flower, which loosely Meganium's neck flower is based off of. It's similar to like the flower from Vileplume, so potentially there could be some kind of relatedness between Vileplume and Meganium, though I don't really think so. And then Saurophyta literally means lizard plant, but it's also sort of a play on words because the group of bacteria, photosynthetic bacteria, that plants evolved from is called Chlorophyta. So, little scientific pun there. Typhlosion's up next, and its scientific name is Vulcamostelis hephaestus, or Weasel God of Fire and Volcanoes. This one is fairly straightforward, but I like it just because it's really complex, and I'm a big Greek mythology nerd. So, Hephaestus is the Greek god of mostly like the forge and like making weapons, but it's also the Greek god of fire. Mustelis, in the genus name, is the group that weasels belong to. Same thing with badgers as well. They're all also in part of the family Mustelidae. And then Vulca is sort of the Roman version of Vulcan is the Roman version of Hephaestus, as well as being the root for the word volcano. Rounding off the Gen 2 starters, we have Feraligatr, whose scientific name is Pheresuchus gigasteus, which means giant-mouthed wild crocodile. Fairly straightforward, not really much to talk about. It's really only called Feraligatr as its actual name because it's a play on words between the word feral and alligator. Just judging by its teeth and the fact that both of its pre-evolved forms are Totodile, which crocodile, and Crocodile, I'm assuming that it's a crocodile and not an alligator. Either way, many species of extinct crocodilians, regardless of if they're crocodiles, alligators, whatever, have the root sucus in their name. Next we have another really fun one, which is Furret, whose scientific name is Vallis fistulus, which literally means fur tube. That's literally all Furret is, essentially. It's just a tube of fur with some little cute feet, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The bird of Gen 2 is Noctowl, whose scientific name is Nox noctua temporalis, which means night owl of time. Obviously, night owl just comes from its actual name, Noct, meaning night, and owl obviously being owl, so Nox noctua means night owl, and then temporalis comes from, mostly related to Hoot Hoot, the fact that it kind of looks like an alarm clock, and I feel like somewhere in the anime, I'll try to find a picture of it, but I have no idea where to look in the anime, but I'm sure that at some point there's been a Hoot Hoot clock, or alarm clock of some kind in the anime. The fact that several of Hoot Hoot's Pokédex entries reference it always, hooting at a certain time, or it's switching its legs at a certain time. So something to do with time. So that's where Temporalis comes from. Getting into the early game bugs of Gen 2, we have Ladian, whose scientific name is Pentalochus astris, which means 5-spotted star. Ladian's Pokedex entry calls it the 5-star Pokemon, and I had never really understood why. It was always something that just didn't make any sense. You know, some of them at least sort of make sense, a lot of them don't. But it's categorized as the 5-star Pokemon, and I had no idea why. Until the Generation 2 leaks came out from like the early sprites that they had used in the beta when they were testing Gold and Silver. And it turned out that the initial, version of Ladian sprite looked basically just like Ladybug, but a little bit bigger, a little bit different features, and instead of just having 5 spots on his back, it had 5 stars. So that's where the 5-star Pokemon comes from, and I wanted to throw a little nod to that in its scientific name as well. Ledian's sort of bug partner is Ariados, whose scientific name is Telarachne toxicum, which means toxic web spider. This is all fairly obvious because it's a spider that's bug poison type, but it's also sort of a reference to its signature move that it shares obviously with its pre-evolution Spinarak, which is Toxic Thread. It's a kind of a neat move that lowers speed as well as giving the target the poison status. So it's a really, in my opinion, competitively useless move, but it's still kind of neat in that it does 2 weird things that are both very useful on a not very useful Pokemon. Next on the list we have Lantern, whose scientific name is Luminipiscus crypsis, which means hidden lightfish. It's, again, fairly obvious, but the hidden part comes from it generally living in very deep water, and then, lightfish, obviously that's kind of Lantern's whole shtick. But the hidden part kind of has a double meaning for me personally, because for a long time, I was really convinced that Chinchou and Lantern were Generation 3 Pokemon, because the only possible way to catch them in Gen 2 is to use a good rod in Goldenrod City. That's the only way to get them, to my knowledge. And I never, when I was playing through Gen 2 as a kid, I never ran into anybody who had them, because I think there's only a handful of trainers in the game that have them. And the first time that I ever saw them was when I was in the underwater in Generation 3. That was the first time I ever saw them, so I was convinced that they were Generation 3 Pokemon until I was playing Heart Gold Soul Silver and found them in that game. Like, why is this Gen 3 Pokemon here? This doesn't belong. And then I actually looked it up. So that's one of the few times I've been utterly convinced something was incorrect in Pokemon. It's, sort of like how a lot of people back in the day were convinced that Togepi is a Gen 1 Pokemon. Similar things. Speaking of Togepi, next up we have Togekiss, whose scientific name is Gaudium volum, which means flying happiness. Again, everything that Togepi, Togetic, and Togekiss, all of their Pokedex entries mention happiness, and now that it's evolved, it can now officially fly. It actually kind of looks like a jet plane, honestly. But yeah, flying happiness. That's basically Togekiss in a nutshell. After Togekiss, we have Xatu, whose scientific name is Relicum spectaculum, which means future seer. In my mind, the first thing that I think when I think Xatu is the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Specifically, Red Rescue Team and Blue Rescue Team, because Xatu plays a really central part of the story, and you go to Xatu because he could see the future and the past. So, I love referencing Mystery Dungeon as often as I possibly can, so I wanted to do that here as well. After Xatu comes Ampharos, whose scientific name is Lucidum Dracovium, which means Shining Dragon Sheep. This is mostly a reference to its Mega Evolution. Some things apparently there's some kind of Japanese myth or something up to that effect about sheep becoming dragons, something like that, which is where normal Ampharos kind of gets this thing from, but I've never personally seen it. But this, like I said, this mostly, referring to its Mega Evolution. Azumarill is up next, and I gave it the name Peekaboo Lepus, which means Peekaboo Rabbit. So, way back in the day, when the first movie came out, the very first movie, and I'm not talking about, the redoing, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution that's coming out later in a couple months. I'm talking about the original Mewtwo Strikes Back. There was, the Pikachu short that, came with every movie that came before it. There were some Pokemon that were revealed from Generation 2 that we had never seen before. So these Pokemon were, I believe, just in this short, it was Meryl and Snubbull. And that was the first time those had ever been seen. And people were like, whoa, what's this little blue thing? And people started calling it Pika Blue. Because For whatever reason, people associate it with Pikachu. I don't really know why. But they did. So that was just like a running thing. That was literally the original leaks of Pokemon were things like Meryl and, how people called Snivy Smugleaf because that was just the name that people felt was appropriate before we actually got its actual name. So I just wanted to throw a little nod toward that as well. Up next, with a very straightforward name, we have Sudowoodo, whose scientific name is Pseudolignum veripetrum, which means fake wood, true rock. Not much else to talk about there. Second to last in today's episode, we have Jumpluff, whose scientific name is Byssus nados, which means floating cotton. Once again, very self-explanatory. I think almost every single one of Jumpluff's Pokédex entries talks about it, being blown away or floating on the winds or something to that effect. And it's very clearly cotton, or at least like a dandelion, I would say. But either way, it's a floating cottony thing. In rounding up this first episode of Generation 2, we have Ambipom, whose scientific name is Dimandibus simius, which means two-handed monkey. Very generic, but again, that's what else is there to talk about Ambipom? So with that, which one of these was your personal favorite? Like I said, mine probably was either Typhlosion or Furret, just because those are generally just more fun for me, the ones that are long drawn out, or the ones that, maybe Xatu, or maybe Lantern as well, just the ones that reference some of my personal experiences with the games. But yeah, let me know, which one was your guys' favorite? Which one of Generation 2 are you looking forward to seeing in the next couple of weeks? Generation 2 should be quite short, because when you consider that, A, there was only 100 Pokemon in Generation 2, and B, we've already taken out a lot of them because they had pre-evolutions in Generation 1, like Crobat and Scizor. There should probably only be 2 more episodes of Generation 2. I'm trying to get more regular about updating this season, just like posting more content to the channel in general. So let me know what kind of content you would want to see coming from me personally. I have a couple things in the works that aren't quite ready to be discussed yet, but I think you'll enjoy them because I know I'm enjoying making them. Follow us on Twitter at Pallet_U. Check out our merch store and website down below. The website was a little iffy for a couple days there when I I just hadn't had the chance to finish updating it, but now it's completely up and running. Definitely go down and check out the website. I think it's pretty neat. And as always, there's a time and place for everything.